G'day, and welcome to another episode of Chillout 3D Modeling. I'm Eric, and today we're going to be making Solaire from Dark Souls as a little toy plushie. Now, if you don't know who Solaire is, he is a character from the video game Dark Souls 1. He is famous in that game, not because he's particularly powerful or even a main character. He's famous just because of his very happy demeanor. He is always happy in the game, in the world of Dark Souls, where no one's happy and it's a very depressing world. So he's a ray of sunshine, if you will. Now, if you're also unaware of what Dark Souls is, it is a dark fantasy role-playing game made in 2011 by From Software, and it is most well known for how challenging it is. It has no option to make it easier. You have to play the game at the difficulty they set it at, and it is very hard. I haven't even played the first one. I've played the third Dark Souls game, and I haven't even finished that one. It's very hard, and that one's meant to be the easiest one. Since I'm making this character as a plushie, I am making all their bits and pieces very round. I'm giving them a nice big old belly, stubby little legs and arms, and a massive head. This will give it like chibi proportions to make it really cute, as a plushie should be. And I'm making sure they're nice and round to make it feel like it's like a stuffed plushie. A stuffed plushie doesn't have many sharp edges, since by being stuffed, everything seems to be rounded out. I do quite a bit of experimentation with this character, as I wanted to try some new things. As, for example, I saw online that a way to improve an arm joint would be to have some extra geometry in the front of the elbow, which the inside of the elbow, which I looked into, and that's mainly for low poly characters, so I may consider going back to my other low poly characters and giving them that. As I've seen, it does improve flexibility in the inside of the elbows quite a bit. However, when I have a subdivision surface modifier on, as in this case, it gets a little funky and doesn't look quite right. Something that I almost forgot to add were the details in the helmet, which is like a crossguard and a little more depth around the eye hole. However, while I was making this, I was chatting to some other artists in a little Aussie art group, and one of them mentioned that the helmet reminded them of Ned Kelly. If you don't know who he is one of the most famous Australian bushrangers, pretty much an outlaw, who went around and did a string of robberies and ended up killing 3 police officers as well, along with a 4th person who was a former friend of his who became an informant for the police. He's either seen as a violent criminal or as a hero. It's rather debated, where some people claim that he is a hero because of his he was standing up for the police corruption, against the police corruption that was rampant through Victoria at the time. But he did also steal a bunch of money from banks and kill 4 people. Anyway, I go about unedkelifying this Solaire by adding a strip down the front of the helmet to give it some details, as that is what Solaire has in his helmet, and by thickening up the border between the eye hole, around the eye hole. With the strips on the helmet, I decided to go back on that and replace the separate objects and decide to merge it together with the already constructed helmet and make it all one piece of armor, pretty much, to make it a little more easy to make it look more like it's one piece of yarn that's been used to make the helmet, rather than multiple pieces stuck to a ball of yarn. I just add a few finishing touches to the model before exporting it as an FBX file into Substance Painter. Now in Substance Painter, it gives us quite a few default materials to work with. One of the main one that I'm going to be using in this case is the linen option. It has a woven linen as a default material that looks so good on little Plushie characters. So I drag that across, make sure I disable the opacity, because that material by default is slightly transparent, so I need to remove any transparency. It's a simple tick box. And then I'll do this for each section of the character that is a different character, a different color, and I will add a black mask to all of these and highlight each of the faces that I want to be each color, assigning them each their own linen material that I will then color accordingly with appropriate metallic values, roughness values, etc. Solaire, the character, has a very distinct symbol on his chest that is a sun with a slight smile to it. I decide to go to Google to try and see if I can find a version of this sun that someone else has put onto Google, and I find one that has a very, very funny face. I don't know what to describe the face as, but I find it very amusing, so I save it as an image, import it into Substance Painter as a color mask, and drag and drop it onto the character's chest. This allows it to act like a spray or a sticker you'd see in like a video game, and it just applies the color over the top of all the other colors. You may have also noticed that I forgot a key part of Solaire's character, the feather. I forgot to add the feather, so I quickly went back into Blender, modeled a little simple feather shape to go onto the helmet, and then bring it back into Substance Painter afterwards to then add that iconic red feather on top of Solaire's helmet. After that, I use the pen tool to make a series of nice round leather strips around his waist as a belt, his arm as a random leather armband that he has on both of his arms, to add those extra final little bits and pieces of details. And with that done, pretty much, I add the finishing touches, export all the images as PNGs, bring them over to Blender so I can then render the final turnarounds. And if you're still here, I want to thank you and wish you a good rest of your day, night, wherever you are.